All right, we are going to do something today. It'll probably take, hopefully, about an hour. But I wanted to explain something to you. I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not. Last night and a week ago yesterday, um, let's put it this way. A week ago yesterday, from about 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock, I was at Wentzville Middle School. And they had a STEM night. STEM is an acronym that stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And it was a thing for middle schoolers. It was kind of an open house where they got to see, they had different booths and stuff. I was there was somebody else there from Rankin. That's the good news. The bad news is I had everything prepared on this machine and I couldn't connect to the internet, so I couldn't really do a flaming thing. So that was fine. So I went back and made some changes just in case that happened, because yesterday I went to, I think it was Frontier, maybe I'm wrong, but one of the other middle schools, and that worked out a lot better. Well, not trying to make this story long, but what I've been doing when I've been coming in here for the last 2 or 3 weeks is I have been creating videotapes from this book. It's a free online book. I mean, if you go out there, if you want to teach yourself App Inventor, that's it. So I've gone through here and I've got now close to 60 videos out there that I've created. I'm trying to do them differently. I've been asked to try to work with one of the junior high schools in O'Fallon because they're doing some work with App Inventor and none of them know anything about it. And they have to work with, they've got robots and they have to be able to program their robots via App Inventor. So they've got the robots, but they don't know App Inventor. I know App Inventor, but I don't have any robots. So ideally, we're going to try to get together, from what I understand. I don't know, I sent them an email yesterday, so we'll see if they get back or not. All right, so what I did was when I went out there yesterday, I built this. Now this is actually in the book, this book here, but I made some changes to it. This is supposed to simulate a xylophone. Okay, and hopefully you can hear this, but all right, and once you do that, if you click the play button, it plays it back for you. All right, and then if you want to, you can reset it and then start all over again. And I even put some stuff out there for some songs, you know, where they would go through different colors and stuff like that. And it was funny because with the music that they gave, these are I think they're WAV files. But the music that they gave, the notes, one of them, for lack of better words, I don't know if this term makes sense, but the note was sour. In other words, you hit it and it didn't sound like the right note. It just sounded really bad. So I went out online. I had to register for some free account because there actually is. I mean, the internet has everything, right? So I found a site that had xylophone sounds. All right. But I had to register for the site, so I did that. All right. So, again, I'm making this story a lot longer than it has to be, but the other thing that I did was I thought, okay, that's enough, but maybe some people would like that, maybe some people wouldn't. So I created another project. This is actually based off of one that is online with them, but literally I created it myself. All right, it doesn't really look anything like, remember the old Magic8Ball? Yep. All right, well, if you look at it, so I can come in here, you know, ask the Magic8Ball a question, hit the submit button to see your answer. Oops. Will I ever be rich? All right, and submit. Cannot tell right now. All right, but you get the idea, right? And hopefully you can see this, that, and I don't know why it keeps throwing the word false in there, but it does. Now the submit button is grayed out. If I reset, it goes back, and now the submit button is undone, and the reset is grayed out, okay? But then I thought, okay, the problem with this is I wanted to be able to show people both of these apps. But the way App Inventor works, you can only have one app running at a time in the emulator. Does that make sense? All right, so what I did, and I'm just going to close all this stuff because that's what I wanted to show you, is I went back and I rewrote it, but I rewrote it in C#. It looks pretty much the same, not identical, but I changed it around a little bit. So this is what it looks like here. And notice if you put nothing in there, it just comes back and says you put nothing in there. But if again, as I say, will I be rich and famous? Count on it, all right? And you know, it's funny because I did this yesterday. I couldn't believe the number of little kids that didn't want to leave this. Jeremy loved it because Jeremy is the site director for Rankin, and he was there, and there were two guys there from one of the other programs. But the first week we did it, I had basically no one talking to me. Yesterday, I was a popular guy, and I wasn't. This was, all right? And so what I was thinking was, I'd like us to build this right now. Now, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. I've already given you the code. I emailed you this morning all the code, all of the files. There's 15 of them that have the answers in them, all right, and the sound files. I emailed you all that. But to me, sometimes I think when you started to get the most out of things in the program last semester was when we were working on that one case study as a class. And you kind of saw how things sort of started coming together. All right, maybe you agree with that, maybe you don't. But I just thought that if we did something like this, ideally at least, it would help bring together a few things. Plus, I'm able to show you a couple things that we haven't talked about yet. All right, so I'm going to build it for you. I've got the code right here. It's not super long, but it's about 110 lines. And that's including the using statement and all the other stuff. So there's probably about 65 or 70 lines of code that you have to write. So I'm going to go till about 9:45. We'll take a break, and if we haven't finished, we'll finish it after that. All right? And again, like I said, if you, for whatever reason, if you say, well, I don't want to do it, then don't do it. All right? You don't have to turn it in. The idea was, like I said, at least it will help you. All right? Hopefully it will help you. But we'll see as we go on. All right. So I'm going to start up Visual Studio. And I'm going to start up a new project. This is going to be a GUI. You could literally do this. You could do this as a console app, but it would just not be that interactive that way. All right? So I'm going to create a new project. I've already got 2 or 3 of these that I've created, so I'm just going to call it JPS8Ball because I know I don't have anything called that. You can call it whatever you want, but make sure you make it as a Forms application if you're going to do this.
Did we open what you sent us, or did we start a new project?
No, you just start up a new project. Like I said, if you decide you don't want to do it, you've got the code there anyway.
Oh, that's right.
All right?
Sure.
Does it need to be in the file with any of the other stuff?
Pardon me?
Does it need to be in the file with any of the other stuff?
What we're going to have to do eventually is you're going to have to grab that folder that I emailed you, unzip it, put it on your desktop because we're going to have to grab those images. We're going to have to grab those sound files. All right?
What did you name it?
I just called it JPS8Ball. You can call it whatever you want. 8-ball, Magic8Ball. It doesn't really matter. Again, when you create these, you really and truly should not have blank spaces in there. All right? I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can see this. All right? The image is going to go right in the middle here. All right, and I'm going to have 3 buttons. One that says Submit Question, one that says Reset, and one that says Exit. Okay? All right. Now, I don't normally do this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to first, I'll reset the name of the form. All right, so I reset the name of my form, and I'm going to also set the text in here, and it says the Magic8Ball sees all, knows all, and tells all. You can put whatever you want in there. You don't have to put anything either. All right, so I've got that in there. But I want you to realize, if you'd please look up on the screen right here for a second, okay? If everybody would just please look up on the screen. I wanted to show you this. Let's see, where do I have this? Oh, it's not there. There it is. Okay. For these images, you may or may not be able to tell this, but for instance, the yes. You see how it's got white in the background? What I'm going to do is I'm literally going to make the background color for the form white because that'll make this stuff transparent. Okay? And you can make it any color you want, but what's going to happen is if you make it any color other than white, that white stuff's going to show there. And that kind of looks a little bit amateurish. You may or may not agree with that, but that's just my feeling. And just so you know, what I did to find these, and I've got to get better at things like Photoshop myself. I just, as soon as I get the time, I always say I'll do that. But I went out to Google Images. You don't have to do this. And I put in Magic 8-Ball answers. All right, you can see there's a bunch of them. I kept going and going and looking, and I thought, oh, that looks pretty good. So I clicked on that, and that's what you have. But because I'm not real proficient with Photoshop, I went into Paint and literally cut out each one of these and saved them as its own file. All right, so I want to show you that's where that is from. Okay. All right, so coming in here then. The first thing that I want to do, and this is a control we have not looked at, but we will later, is if you look in here, you'll notice, well, there's nothing that says image. And I want to put it, there's an image list, but that's if I want to put a bunch of images in, more for lack of better words, like an array. And you may say, well, you got a bunch of images. Yeah, but I only want to show one at a time. So an image list isn't the right kind of control. The control I'm going to use here is what's called a picture box. So I'm going to double click on the picture box control, and then I'm going to resize it, and that's where I'm going to end up putting my Magic 8-Ball is right in there. So I'm going to make it about that size. Try to center it somewhat on the screen. All right, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. Later we'll go and we'll put something in there. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it right now. Okay. And if it really bugs you, if you look at that and you go, well, I can't figure out, et cetera, remember, you can always, and I'm going to do this, but I'll change it later. You can always go to the background color if you want to for now, and I could just to do that, all right? And I forgot to do it before. Again, I want to take my form itself, and I want to make the background color of the form, I want to make that white. All right? So there's my picture box. Again, I'm going to remove that coloring in a little bit, okay? Now I'm going to put in my 3 buttons. And again, there's going to be, one is going to be called submit question, one's going to be called reset form, and one's going to be called exit program. I just gave them those names. There's nothing specific or special about them. All right? So the first one, again, is going to be called button submit question. And that's the, that's the text I'm going to put in there, submit question. All right. The second one is going to be called reset form. So again, that will be button reset form. And the last one will be called button exit program. You want to just call it exit? It doesn't really matter. Now, am I right in assuming that any one of you could create this interface? Is that a fair assumption? Okay, I'm asking, is there anyone in here who feels like they couldn't create this interface? All right. The reason I'm asking you that is 4 weeks from today, we are going to be inundated with somewhere between 25 and 50 students from the Lewis and Clark Career Center. Okay? And we're going to have them in here for 3.5 to 4 hours. I'm supposed to talk for 10 minutes and give them an overview of the program. Then I'm supposed to turn it over to you, and you're supposed to be the teachers. So one or more of you are going to have them do this program. That's why I'm asking whether or not you understand how to set it up. Okay? And I mean, anybody who smiles will probably be the first person who's going to have to talk to those students. Okay? No, I'm just kidding. All right. So, no, he was smiling. I'm just kidding. Okay. So that's the first thing. Now, what I can do, if you remember, and I'm sorry, I know I give you tons of emails in here, but one of the emails that I gave you the other day, was that thing that had the code in there for the exit button. Maybe you remember that, maybe you don't. It doesn't really matter. There it is, exit button code. And I'm going to throw it into here, and then I'm going to copy it over. So there's my code for my exit button. If you don't have it or don't remember it, is everybody cool with that code? All right. By now, ideally at least, that code that's in here right there, that code should really make sense to all of you as far as what's going on there. That shouldn't be any surprise or anything else. And I'll leave that up there for a second, so if you didn't copy it or whatever, so you can put it in right now. And again, you don't have to even be that elaborate if you don't want to. You could just put in, exit the program now, and you know, leave most of the rest of the stuff out if you want to do that. And again, one of the things that we have to talk about in the next week or so is we have to start talking about updating those portfolios. All right? And is this a program you're going to want to put into your portfolio? That's your call. But you are going to have to link to somewhere around 5 or 6 of your C# programs. All right? So right now, if I look at this, what should work in here, if I run this, okay, is at least the exit should work. And that's good. If I say no, I should stay here. If I exit and I say yes, boom, I'm out. Good. So that works. All right. Now, unfortunately, when I showed you this, I guess I wasn't complete because we need 2 more things in here. All right. We need a label and we need a text box. So I'm going to put a label in here. And underneath the label, I'm going to put in a text box. All right. Again, added a label and added a text box. For the label, I'm just going to call it label instructions, because that's what I'm going to put in here are the instructions. All right. And for the text, I'm going to put enter your question in the box below and hit the submit question button. All right. And I know that's kind of hard to read. I'm going to make it bigger in just a second. So. So again, I'll play with the font here. Not going to make it humongous or anything, but I'll make it at least bigger than it is. And don't worry, I'll adjust that in just a second. And I'm going to bold it. Enter your question in the box below and hit the submit button. All right, I'll have to make this a little wider. Again, it sure as heck isn't perfect, but it's okay. All right? Does everybody understand now what I did here? Because I wanted to make that bigger. I went into my auto size which is automatically set to true, and I reset it to false. Everybody cool with that? Everybody cool with going in and changing the font? All right. These are all things that are discussed, and it's like chapter 12 or so. So I'm not even going to go over those because we already have. All right. Now, for this text box that's right here, all right, I'm going to call that one text box let's put it text box question. And there won't be any text in it. All right, there won't be any text in it. But
Sorry.
What?
Is there a way to change the size of the text box?
we're going to do that right now. Thank you, audience plant. All right, so if you want to change the size of the text box, we don't know how big the question is somebody's going to type into it. So for the text box right here, I'm going to go down, I'm going to find a thing in here that's called multi-line. Okay, in my properties, and it's false. So again, you can either double click it, or you can, click the down arrow that's right here and choose true. But either way, and as soon as you do that, you can see it gets the lines on it. So now I can make this bigger. And I'm going to make it about the same size as the label that went with it. Okay, and I'll even make it a little higher. All right. So again, by no means is this perfect. Okay, and I don't mean to say that it is. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change the color of it just so it stands out a little bit. All right, so the back color, I'm going to make it, like that light blue, I think. There. Now I'm asking you again, because I don't know, and I'm not trying to be funny or anything else. Does everything that we've done up till this point, does it all make sense? That is our complete interface. There is nothing else in there. All right. So again, what I like to do, you don't have to do this, but what I like to do when I get to that point is I like to say, okay, everything's looking pretty much the way I want it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock my controls. So if you look on the screen here, I'm going to click in my form, single click, do a Control A to highlight everything. Right mouse click and choose lock controls. Do you all understand what's happening when you lock the controls? If you look up on the screen here, notice they all have the little locks there. Now if I click on any of them, I can't move it. I can double click to bring up a code window, all right, but I can't move it. All right. Does all that make sense? Now I'm going to do a couple more things that to me or for me, these are just things I like to do in programs, all right, such as, all right, I want to set my tab order. So I'm going to do a view, and I'm going to go to tab order, all right, and I want immediately, I want that to be highlighted. That's got to be my 0th element. So when the program starts, it's going to be inside of the text box. So I'm going to click in there, and then I'm going to click on each of my buttons, 1, 2, 3, and I don't think you can even click on the picture box. So I'll just put the label here. So I'm setting up my tab order like that. Again, you can't tab to that label anyway, and I don't believe you can tab to a picture box. All right. So I've set the tab order, so I'm going to do another view, tab order. All right. So now that's done. That's good. That's one of the things I wanted to get done. Now again, because I'm a little anal, a lot more anal probably than most of you, I'm going to unlock these. So I'm going to move them down just a tad. There. And then I'm going to lock them back up again. All right. So I've got that done. The other things I want to do is, there's three more. First, I want to go up and I want to single click on the form, and I want to go to my accept button, and I want to set my accept button to submit question. That way, if somebody enters a question, they can hit enter and it'll be submitted. Does that make sense? Again, I'm trying to make the program as simple for them to use as possible. That's the first thing. Second thing, I'm going to go down to my cancel button. And I'm going to set that to reset form, button reset form. All right, so I've got those two. Last thing I'm going to do is for my form, I'm going to go down to where it says start position. And right now it says Windows default location. I'm going to click and change that to center screen. So when I run it, it now looks like this. Does all that make sense? And notice where my cursor is. and notice how I can tab to each button. That's what I want. All right. Now, I can hit enter, but there's no code for that to run. I can hit escape, but there's no code for that to run. So we're going to have to put code in each of these. The only one we have code in right now is exit. But since we're also trying to make this a learning exercise for chapters 7 and 8, when we put the code in for these, we're gonna write different routines. So we're gonna have our buttons call a routine. Does that make sense? Why? Because that's just the way that it's done. I don't know any other way to say it to you than that. That is just the way that it's done. All right? So I'm gonna exit the program now. All right, so we have to start putting in our code. Before we do, think about this, all right? And tell me if this makes sense. What I want to have happen is in just a minute, we're going to change this so that the image is going to be put in there, the one with just the 8 ball on it, with just an 8. You know, the black ball with a white circle and a black 8 inside of it. That's what's going to go right here, okay? That's what I want whenever I start. But think about what I want to have happen when I submit, okay? I want that image to change. So if I put in there, will I be rich and famous, I want it to say yes or whatever. Does that make sense? But to make this look a little bit more professional, we're also going to do this. When we click that submit button, not only do we want the image to change, we want this to go away. Enter your question in the box below, and we want this to go away. It makes no sense because they just entered their question. All right? So we're going to have both of these go away. Then once we click the reset form, they'll come back again. Does that make sense? The other thing that we'll do is when you click this, when you submit it, we're not going to let you just keep submitting. Hit submit. So as soon as you click that button and this changes and these go away, this button is going to be disabled. And then this button is going to be enabled. And once you click reset, this button will be disabled and that button will be enabled. Does all that make sense? Because it allows us to look at some of the properties that go with this stuff as well. And if you say, well, I'm a little confused, it's all right because you're going to get to see it in action. All right? So the next thing we're going to work on here, I'm not going to get tied down right now with the different images. We're going to do all that stuff. But what we're going to do next is we're going to put the code in to reset the form. Now, this might not be a good idea just because of the fact we're not going to be able to do anything with it. You'll be able to run it and click it, but nothing is going to change in here. But that's okay. All right? I want to do that one first because it's the easiest one. So I'm going to double click on reset form, and right below where we've got the click event, right below it, I'm going to write a routine that's called reset image. You could call it whatever you want. Now I'm going to get the squigglies there because I haven't written it yet, so I'm going to put it right underneath. Private void reset image paren, boom. Okay? So double click your reset button, put this in there, and then put this in right underneath it. Does all that make sense? And I already told you what we wanted to do in here. I've already told you that. All right? So we're going to start doing that right now. Well, the first thing I want to do in here, is I want to, that label will be invisible, so I want to make it visible again. So label instructions, dot visible. Notice as soon as I put this in here, how the IntelliSense right now, it did understand the visible, and it says it gets or sets, which means if it's true, it's going to be visible. If it's false, it's going to be invisible. That makes sense? All right, so we just want to set it to true. That's the first thing. So again, I just want to make sure you're understanding this. That's going to take this, where it says enter your question in the box below, which will previously have been invisible, and it will make it visible again. All right? So that's the first thing. Then the next thing we want to do is we want to bring back the text box as well, which was invisible. So text box, text box, I think we call it text box question, yep, dot visible. We're going to set that equal to true. All right? We also want to make sure that when we set it back, we don't want that old question to be back in there. You know what I'm saying? You put a question in, you got it answered, and then you hit reset. Well, we don't want the same question to appear in there, because if it does, then the user has to backspace over it, and that's stupid. So we're going to go text box question dot text equals double quote, double quote. And you know what that means because you've done that before. All right? Then the last thing that we want to do for now is now we just clicked reset. So the submit button should be active, but the reset button should now be inactive. In other words, this should be enabled, that should be disabled. And that's what we're going to do last. All right? So we're going to say, and the order in which you do these doesn't matter. Button submit question dot enabled equal true, and button reset form dot enabled equal false. All right, and I'll leave that up there for a minute. We're going to have to add one thing to this. We will do it later. What we want to add to this, I'm coming right back to this. We want to make sure that when we click the reset button, the image that's in here goes back to that Magic 8 Ball. Again, the one that looks like this, in here. That's what we want to have happen, all right? So we're going to set that, but we're not going to do it right now because I don't want to get us tethered where we're tied to these images right now, all right? I'm more concerned with you understanding the logic. So like I said, you don't have to do this, but notice if I click reset form, it doesn't look like anything happened. But if I do start, all right, so if I come in here and let's just run it again. If I run this, okay, and I do put in some stuff and I click reset, you notice that goes away. All right? And now that I look at it, what's not there? I don't see my cursor there. So I should put that in there too. So we should add one more line here that says text box question dot focus. But you hopefully are at the point now in this class that what's happening in every one of these lines makes sense. And I'm not saying it for when these students come in. I'm saying it because this is something you should all understand. We've talked about a few properties, visible and enabled, which we haven't discussed yet, but by their names, they should be intuitive enough that hopefully at least they make sense to you. All right. Now, let's see. I don't really want to do it now, but we're going to anyway. We're going to come in and we're going to add the images. All right? And the reason for that is we have to put in the code now for the submit question button. And unless we have images, it's really not going to make much sense. All right? But we're going to do this in what I would call, for lack of better words, we're going to do this in a clean way. And what I mean is, if you would please, all of you, because I want you to learn how to do this. Wherever you've got a thing up here that says solution with a name on it, underneath that is the name of your project, right? Right mouse click on the name of your project and choose add. You don't have to click anything, but just highlight add so it looks like this. All right? We're going to add 2 folders right now, okay? And so we're going to do new folder twice. The first folder that we put in is going to be called images. That's where we're going to put all those images in, all right? The second folder that we put in is going to be called sounds, and that's where, I don't know if you heard that, but it goes like, ta-da, okay? That's where we're going to put that, okay? So with add, I'm going to go to new folder, and you can put it in uppercase. Most people tend to take these folders, put them in lowercase. So I'm going to make a folder images. Then I'm going to right mouse click on my project name again, do another add, do another new folder, and that's going to be sounds. Just so you're aware of this, you may or may not care. I'm going to turn off my mail. All right, just so you're aware of this, and again, you may or may not know it, it will automatically, it meaning Visual Studio, should at least automatically put these in alphabetic order. So if you did sounds first and then you did images, I believe it swaps them and puts them in alphabetic order. All right? So what we want to put in here are all those images that we have, and there are 16 of them, and they're 0 through 15. 0 is the one just with the 8-ball on it, and the other 15 are the answers. All right? For sounds, that ta-da sound that you heard, that was actually an MP3 file. Well, I never tried to bring sound into a C# program until yesterday. And it's amazing. I even went out onto Microsoft's, the MSDN, the Microsoft Developer Network site, and looked, I keyed in there, how to add sound to a C# program. Of course, it came back with tons of hits. And every single one that I went to like the first 10, says this is how you put it in a C# program. And it wasn't C#, it was C++, which is a different language, and you do stuff differently in there. So I ended up going back just into regular Google, and I finally found it. All right, the reason I'm telling you that is there are different ways to do it. The way that I did it, that would only take the file as a WAV file. So I had to go and convert the MP3 file to a WAV file. So I looked online, and it was like, oh, you can download this, you can download this, you can download this. This is my opinion, so I'm giving you my opinion. You may or may not agree with it. If you've got to do something like that, for example, like convert an MP3 file to a WAV file, I would be, before I go and download anything onto the computer, I'm going to go and say convert MP3 file to WAV file online. That's what I found. There was an online conversion tool, which meant I didn't have to go and download something on my machine. I don't want to do that if I don't have to. There's so much garbage out there that's infected with this or with that. All right? I don't know if anybody heard that story on the news last night. It's semi-related, but I think it's a steel company in Alton that somebody went in and there was some kind of a scam that was sent, they think, at least they didn't say it, but it made it sound like to the payroll manager at this place. And the person, it was a real official looking email saying, we're from the IRS, we need information. And somehow this person sent back 300 employees' sets of information. Names, phone numbers, W-2s, social security numbers. So all these people they sent them to, they're trying to quick get their taxes done so they can get those people's money back. All right? And if you've ever gone through or heard of anything like that, if a person can prove their scam like that, they'll get their money back. It may take up to 2 years. So all I'm saying is, if I can keep from loading something, I'm going to try at least. All right? Okay, now for you to be able to do this, you're going to have to extract that file that I gave you. So the file that I gave you this morning, oh, of course I closed it. The file that I sent you this morning, was right here. It says for class today. You know, it's for the class. It's not a small file. It was 2 meg. So I'm going to grab it. I'm going to right mouse click on it, save the link as, save it onto my desktop. Boom. There it is. Then I'm going to take that and extract it. And once I've extracted it, what's in there again, this is the actual completed program. So if you don't get it done or it doesn't work or whatever, some of the names I used were different than the names I've given you in here, all right? But it's the same program. The sound file has got the ta-da, and this is the original MP3, and the one that I converted over to a WAV, all right? And it's also got, what we're concerned with right now are these images, okay? And if you just did what I asked you to do, you're going to be able to bring all 16 images in at once, which is much better than having to do them individually. All right? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to right mouse click on my new images folder. You want to put them into the images folder. You don't want to put them into the sounds folder. Images should go in an image folder. Wave, MP3, etc. should go into a sound folder. If you've got a project that's complex enough, you might have your own file structure. So for instance, let's say that I was going to be doing, this was going to be a website, and it was going to be for Rankin. And I wanted to separate it by campus. So let's say I had some pictures of Rankin St. Louis, Rankin Wentzville, and Rankin Perryville. Then when you open this images up, I might have more folders in there. But for now, one folder for each is going to suffice. So I right mouse click on images, and I choose add, but I want to choose existing item because I already have those. So I'm going to choose existing item, and now I have to search for it. Well, I saved mine to the desktop, and it's called For the Class, and there's an images folder, and if you look, there's nothing in there. It's because it defaults to C# files. So I've got to click over here where it says this, and go down to the bottom and choose all files, and sure enough, there they are. Yes?
It's actually an easier way. You could just flip the file like that on its own, highlight it all, and just pull it over.
Yeah, but I would, you're right. That'll work with some files, but not, that'll work with image files, but when you try to do it with other files, it may or may not work. All right? So with doing this, I'm just going to do a Control A to I don't know what the hell I just did. Try that again. All files. No items match. I don't know what I just did, but I think I might have just removed all those files. All right, that's okay. I'll grab them from here. It's not a problem. But you want to make sure they're all highlighted, in other words, all right? However you do it. No. See, they're here. And you're right, there are other ways you can do it. For instance, I just literally went to the folder and I did select all, and I copied them all. I can come in here then, and I can right mouse click, and I can choose, it's not showing it, but there's a way to paste them in. There's about 5 different ways you could do this. All right? And if it really, I'll take your question a second. If it really confuses you and you go, I tried and nothing works, fine. Then you can always do this. So with all these highlighted, I can do a control and I can do a copy. Then I can, for lack of better words, force it in by going into where my file is. In here, going into my images folder, and then literally just pasting them in like that. That'll work. Any of those ways will work. All right, well, so which one do you use? You use whatever one is easiest for you. I guess I made copies of everything too, which I sure is. Oh, I got 2 copies of everything. Isn't that nice? At least of a lot of things. All right. So now, hopefully, at least they're all in there. And when I come back to here, sometimes when you come back here, it looks like it's not there. So you right mouse click on it, and they've changed it. There used to be a refresh on it. But they all should be in there. Okay? I'll double check to make sure they're in there, but they all should be in there. See, I open the folder in the File Explorer, and it shows me that they're all there. All right. So they are there. Okay? But what I want to make sure, and we're going to take a break a little early because I've hosed this up a little bit and I want to fix it. But what we want to do, what we'll do when we come back, is one of the first things we want to do is I want to change that coloring, and I want to set that so it's the original image when we start. Plus, whenever we click the reset button, I want that original image to come back. Does all that make sense? All right. So it's about 9:40. Let's come back at around 9:50.